Well, hello there, and welcome to my kitchen table. A place in most homes where we can sit with family and friends and just talk for hours. We're off to Peterborough today, which is a city in the east of England, in the county of Cambridgeshire. It has a population of around 340,000 and is known for its 12th and 13th century Peterborough Cathedral and its Gothic facade. It is beautiful. The Peterborough Ditch Murders were a series of murders which took place in Cambridgeshire in England in March 2013. All the victims were men, and they all died from stab wounds. Their bodies were discovered dumped in ditches outside Peterborough. In Hereford, two other men were stabbed, but they survived. The perpetrator of these horrific crimes was Joanna Christine Dennehy. Joanna Dennehy was born October 11th, 1982, in St Albans in Hertfordshire, in England. Her upbringing was, by all accounts, a stable and loving one, and she did well at school throughout her junior years. As she entered her teenage years, however, Joanna began to experiment with drink and drugs and to spend more and more time with petty criminals. She became a petty criminal herself and actually served time in a juvenile detention facility for burglary. At the age of 15, she left home. She entered into a relationship with a then 20-year-old John Trainer, whom she would subsequently have two children with. As her babies grew, Trainer and others around the family noticed Dennehy's increasing narcissism. She would put her own wants, desires, and needs above those of anyone else, including her children. When things got too much to handle, John packed up the children and left. By this time, Joanna was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and she'd started self-harming, cutting her arms and stomach with knives and razor blades. And she developed an unwarranted hatred of her mother, and she would rant about her. Doctors who examined Dennehy before and after her killing spree had diagnosed her with a range of conditions. A year before she struck, she was found to have a psychopathic antisocial personality disorder that manifested itself in anger, aggression, impulsivity, and irresponsibility. All those big words, and I didn't fluff one of them. She did not care about the safety of others at all in any way, shape, or form. I fluffed a small word. She felt no remorse when causing harm, and she was a skilled deceiver and manipulator. Her sexual preferences disturbed some of her many partners, men and women, but it added a kind of allure or, well, an attraction for others. After her arrest, she was diagnosed as having paraphilia sadomasochism. That's deriving sexual pleasure from both giving and receiving pain and humiliation. She didn't hide her tendencies, often wearing handcuffs hanging off the belt loop on her jeans. She was a consumer of violent pornography and a habitual self-harmer, like I've said before. But she used to cut her body during sex. Takes all kinds, I suppose. That being said, her murderous spree was a huge shock to her friends and her family. A very respectable family, I might add, and to the police. Though she had significant mental health problems and a criminal record, there was nothing to suggest that she would suddenly murder three men. and tried to kill twice more. In March 2013, Dennehy went on a killing spree in Cambridgeshire, England. She murdered 3 men and attempted 2 other murders over a 10-day period. Kevin Lee was a property developer, landlord, her employer, and her lover. Kevin ran a housing project which housed recently released from prison, homeless, drug addicts, alcoholics. Great place to live. Oh, Dennehy was his muscle, or enforcer, as she liked to be known. She was tasked with dealing with rent collections, dealing with any late payments, warnings, and evictions. He was stabbed 5 times in the chest. Lukasz Slaboszewski, a Polish national. Of course he was, with a name like that. He met Dennehy through a shared interest in drink and drugs. It's not actually clear where she actually met him, but she met him. And he'd actually arranged to meet Dennehy at the house where she was staying, thinking he was going to be getting drunk and high. But this is where she killed him, with deep stabbing wounds, some of which went through his heart. Slaboszewski was killed at some point between the 19th and the 29th of March 2013. John Chapman was a housemate of Dennehy. He was a simple man with a simple lifestyle. He was a drinker, but he tended to keep himself to himself. Dennehy was aware that he often had problems paying his rent, which left him in arrears. So one night, after a drink and drug-fueled get-together in the house, Dennehy evicted him by stabbing him to death. Both Lee and Chapman died on the 29th of March. Lee's body was found the next day near Newborough. Dennehy had actually dressed him in a black sequined evening gown before dumping the corpse. The bodies of Slaboszewski and Chapman found on the 3rd of April, on the same day, near Thorney, with stab wounds. At this point, I'd like to apologise for the snoring. It's not me, it's me dog. He's under the table asleep, and he's a Shih Tzu. He can't help it. After the initial murders, Dennehy went on the run. During this time, she went on a stabbing spree, targeting 2 men, committing further violent crimes. She stabbed the 2 men after Stretch had chosen them at random, at her request. Find me someone to kill. How about that one? Says he. Stops the car, she jumps out and goes and stabs them. The poor guys were only walking the dogs. Robin Bereza and John Rogers fortunately survived the attacks. But the cow actually took one of their dogs, stole his dog, after near stabbing him to death, and put it in the car and took it with her. Another man, Mark Lloyd, who was travelling in the car unwillingly. They had some stolen stuff that they needed to get rid of, and he was taking them to a guy he knew that would buy the stuff and get rid of it. But he didn't know she was going to go on a stabbing spree, and he was absolutely horrified. He was also terrified. So he was later cleared of any criminal involvement in the attacks. In November 2013, Dennehy pleaded guilty to all 3 murders and 2 further attempted murders. his sister Maria was unsurprised by the guilty plea. She said, "I think she did that to control the situation. She likes people to know who's the boss." Dennehy was held on remand in His Majesty's Prison, Bronzefield. Assessing psychiatrists later agreed with the previous diagnoses, basically. They said she had psychopathic, antisocial, and borderline personality disorders. And then some. The trial began at the Old Bailey in London, where Dennehy could be seen laughing during proceedings. I've actually seen a video of when she was arrested, and when she's standing at the desk in the police station, waiting to be booked in as a prisoner before she was questioned. She was flirting with the coppers, actually flirting with them. Oof. So anyway, at one point she stated, "I have pleaded guilty and that's that." That was when she was questioned about her decision. At one point during the trial, Dennehy stood up and told presiding Mr. Justice Spencer, "I don't want to be controlled by anybody. I don't want to be controlled by my lawyers, by the police, by anybody." Guess she got a point across. On 28th of February 2014, Mr. Justice Spencer called Dennehy a cruel, calculating, selfish, and manipulative serial killer. Yeah, I think you got it all. And sentenced her to life imprisonment with an additional order that she should never be released due to the premeditation of each murder. Now, we actually call that here a whole life order or a whole life tariff. That's life imprisonment without parole. Spencer said that Dennehy was a sadomasochistic and lacked the normal range of human emotions. Dennehy was the third woman in the UK to be given a whole life order, after Myra Hindley and Rosemary West. Two men, Richards or Stretch, he was 7'3", by the way. He was 47 years old, and Leslie Layton, 36, stood trial, charged with a range of crimes relating to assisting Dennehy. Both decided not to give evidence in their defence, because if they'd give evidence in their defence, they would have been given evidence against Joanna, and they couldn't do that. Couldn't possibly do that. The jury began deliberating on the 4th of February 2014. On the 10th of February, Richards was found guilty of attempted murder, and Layton was found guilty of perverting the course of justice. On the 12th of February, Layton and Richards were convicted of all their crimes. Richards, or Stretch, remember, was sentenced at the Old Bailey alongside Dennehy to life imprisonment, but he was recommended to have a minimum of 19 years to serve before he becomes eligible to apply for parole. Layton was sentenced to a total of 14 years. And Robert Moore, 55, no idea who he was. He actually admitted to assisting an offender, and he got a 3-year sentence. Dennehy's motives for killing remained unclear, although she did tell others that she just wanted to kill. Some reports suggest that she may have been motivated by a desire for notoriety and infamy, which is possible. She also seemed to derive pleasure from the act of killing. After her trial, Dennehy was returned to His Majesty's Prison, Bronzefield. In 2018, she requested permission to marry her cellmate, Hayley Palmer. To the dismay of Palmer's family, who feared Dennehy might endanger her. Their fears were justified, because in 2018, both Dennehy and Palmer tried to kill themselves during a suicide pact. In June 2020, Dennehy was reported to be in a relationship with another prisoner, Emma Aitken, a 25-year-old, serving a 12-year sentence for her part in a murder of a man whose body was dumped outside a social club. Although in May 2021, it was again reported that Dennehy and Palmer, the latter, who has since been released from his 16-year robbery sentence, intended to marry. He never did, by the way. Dennehy was moved and is now serving her sentence at His Majesty's Prison, Low Newton, near Durham in the north of England. It's a maximum security prison for Britain's female killers that once imprisoned Rose West. That was until Dennehy threatened her life. Nobody's admitting to that, by the way. The government, the prison, etc. Although Rose West is now an inmate at His Majesty's Prison, Newhall, in Flockton, West Yorkshire. So she gets moved to West Yorkshire, but it wasn't because of Dennehy. Oh no. How could they just admit it? Joanna Dennehy's case has received significant media attention and has been the subject of documentaries and true crime books and true crime videos. Her crimes have also sparked discussion about the future of serial killers. Sorry, the nature of serial killers and the criminal justice system. It's a case which is a chilling example of a female serial killer, and the brutality of her crimes did shock the public. Her actions and the subsequent investigations and trial have left a lasting impact on the UK and on its justice system and the way public perceives violent crime. It's important to recognise that while her troubled upbringing, it wasn't a troubled upbringing at all, that's just her saying that, and her personal issues may have contributed to her criminal behaviour, they do not excuse or justify the heinous crimes that she committed. Joanna Dennehy's life and actions are a complex and disturbing case, and she's considered one of the country's most dangerous female prisoners and a highly dangerous individual by the criminal justice system. And rightly so. Thank you so much for allowing me to tell you this story, and thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. It's free, so don't hold back. And if you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. I've been Sue, TTFN.